Africa, say it louder. Say shut up. Salam alaikum, 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 salam alaikum.
We stand, we fight, we fall. All we need is freedom. All we need is freedom. Free Africans free.
Free from slavery, free from slavery, free as a from the slavery, free as a from the slavery, free as a from the slavery, free from slavery, free from slavery, yeah.
We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war.
Salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum, salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum, salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum, salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, African woman. If you wanna be free, the most simple one in the world. Get yourself the Baba when I reggae music coming to you from the one of the most peaceful men. So many lying down on the streets, what about them? We are dancing at the ends. Get yourself the most free time. I preach about freedom. Preach about freedom.
We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war.
Wake up to come the street and say listen, youth. Stop violence and say listen. You want to listen and be a man. The music we are doing is not a music for fun. We are preaching, hear it loud and clear. Hey, night and day, no sleeping it out. Better preach, let the people hear. Better preach, let the blind feel. The sound of freedom and love. The sound of freedom and love. The sound of freedom and love. The sound of African one love. Salam alaikum, salam alaikum, Libya, salam alaikum, Niger, salam alaikum, Nigeria, salam alaikum, Niger, salam alaikum, South Sudan, salam alaikum, Sudan, salam alaikum, South Africa, salam alaikum, Africa, salam alaikum, African one, salam alaikum, let's see what I'm free, salam alaikum, United we stand, salam alaikum, salam alaikum, salam alaikum, salam alaikum.
All right, dear of concerned citizen of South Sudan, greeting to all of you, wherever you are tuning in tonight. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you in advance. The question of democracy in South Sudan is always a matter of political democratic question to all patriotic South Sudanese who would like to see a political and democratic transition in the country, and a peaceful transformation of the power from one leader to another periodically. This as well in a matter of concern to the people of the region and the entire civilized democratic world. The liberators had repeatedly claimed during the War of Liberation that one of the reasons of waging war against Khartoum was democracy and political reforms. Today, South Sudan is an independent country for more than a decade, yet the state of democracy in this country remains vague. And it is therefore a question of concern to all of us tonight. Many questions about the state of democracy in South Sudan remain unanswered. Tonight, this episode shall try to answer some questions, if not all questions, about the state of democracy in our beloved country, the Republic of South Sudan. Today, we will be joined by Dr. Peter Birajak, a concerned, a political activist, as someone who struggled with his comrades, as someone who was called as a seed when South Sudan see the light after the war. But unfortunately, that is not the case right now. He was detained by the current government in Juba for speaking out, for expressing his opinion how this country should be taken to the next level. You recall very well the generational exit. Peter Berajak, 2 weeks ago, spoke at the Summit for Democracy that was organized by White House, by President Joe Biden. And tonight, we are hosting him to ask this question of democracy in our beloved country, the Republic of South Sudan. So, my dear brothers, I welcome all of you, wherever you tune in tonight. And I know it is a Christmas day, and we have so many concerns, and that's why we have to come here and express and talk about these very important issues. Please, I invite you to go ahead and share this live episode so others who are not aware of it will be able to tune in. أهلا ومرحبا بكم جديدا في حلقتنا اليوم concern citizen of South Sudan. كل سنة وأنتم بخير. المجد لله في العالي وعلى الأرض السلام وللناس الذين أحبهم الله المسرة. That's what's supposed to happen. We are celebrating Christmas today, and our country is still bleeding. Our country is still suffering. Our country is still going through difficult times than ever before. So with that, we dedicated this day today to talk about the state of democracy in South Sudan. So momentarily, we'll be joined by our guest, Dr. Peter Berajak, a Harvard graduate and a seat also of South Sudan. He was one of the Lost Boys as well. We will join, momentarily here so we can start this discussion going. So go ahead, please, and share our live episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let me continue this thing as we are waiting for Dr. Peter Berajak. I hope he's not having difficulties tuning in.
Africa, say it louder. Say it louder. Salam alaikum. Assalam alaikum. Salam alaikum. Assalam alaikum. Salam alaikum. Assalam
And Merry Christmas to you, my viewers. One more time. We are waiting for Dr. Peter Berajak so we can start our program here. Okay, let me do this while we are waiting. I can play you the beauty of South Sudan. So. Do this.
Wait.
Okay. While we are waiting for Dr. Peter Abiar, let's go ahead and listen to this beautiful cultural South Sudanese. He's situating himself.
Kuria bigir, kunyala bigir malwal, atem bolbo, manayun guladia, atem mayun bar guleng bigi chola wer kenyita, ije jatin, aboka guladia, burula tutu, den burula tutu kaya.
ES
Atem!
Baldi on the beat.
Wan chigwir pati kairu de an mulkarang yori amangal padil korang wal undi wal durjo padil ban wadyar o ami bola jela ruwati dai kan pokai wan chigwir pati kairu de an mulkarang yori amangal padil korang wal undi wal durjo padil ban wadyar oh, ami bola diala ruwati daya kan koke wabiyen yerienti bola diala ruwabiyen ke boka kubi kunyu pan kwalakyo kwe kwarke ko wati kwaldi jolo wonde ben yang nyatari kanen kiwo tero patil kuwai ke pai ayo wabiyen yerienti bola diala ruwabiyen ke boka Ubi kunyu pan kwalakyo kwe kwarke ko wati kwaldi jolo wonde ben yang nyatari kanen kiwo tero patil kuwai ke payo achong ginyan kwalakyo adida chong ginyan kwalakyo yedeng kola duel madida o patil ben wate riam gedan wan mai deng malwalde wate riam kuyen lan payo mate nyande Mikorano ate yung achong ginyan kwalatyo Madida achong ginyan kwalatyo Yenyan kol payo madida Upat wila banaban wate riam Kedarwan may deng malalir wate riam Kuyelan payo mate nyande Mikorano ate yung Upat wil korong wal dorjuan Yarurian kiwo kemeru di deng wal Uram le palia kwal palenya tinyaran opat wil madinga ulong nyarurian kiwo kemeru di dengwal Uram le palia kwal palenya tinyaran wawi akwal yaran kwal ya tinggal padwil pana wil jandi dipani denga wendi akwal ini ki padil gam korong wal durjo ya tingpan denga wendi Akwal ini jiwa tingam korong wal dorjo Aye kwal ini jiwa tingam wadi yore denga wendi de jigam kewa Garang yoda wendi de jigam
kumagar dwangai marial bil chikam chantong nyantin yaral in chi wadi yore denga wendi de chigam kewa garang yoda wendi de chigam kumagar dwangai marial bil chikam chantong nyantin yaral na lowram dwe pan pade yaral kayan long wallan garang yoda wendi walan cholong yenom long patil pana chongi Yinar ginbang malengit weweng yinar majang deng mi areng wir paneda and chimir kenyan palin yaral na loram be pan pade yaral kayan lang walan garang yoda weni walan cholong yenom long padil pana jongit Yinar ginbang malengit weweng yinar majang deng majang haring panen dan kitir kenyan paliyara lekiku.
We are back, and I do see that Dr. Peter Berajak is staging actually in the studio. Let me go ahead and bring him back here, and we can start our program. Dr. Peter Biar, welcome to the show, and I wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, which is started very soon. Before we start our interview tonight and a discussion on state of democracy in our country, I want to give you a minute to send your greeting to our people back home and all around the world. Please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Jonkur, for hosting me. Thank you for the good wishes. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Happy New Year. May this really be a Christmas filled with blessings for you and your family. And I wish this to every single person out there, every South Sudanese. May this Christmas be special. May it be filled with peace, with joy, with love, with harmony. I'm very blessed and happy to celebrate this Christmas again with my family here in the United States. And it's really a deep joy and a blessing to me. And I'm really grateful to the Lord for that. So I'm really in a very good mood. But at the same time, I know there's a lot of our people that are struggling because this is a time that people should be celebrating with their loved ones. But we know that our people are separated. Many of them do not have food on the table. Many of them are sick. Many of them are suffering. They're living in abject poverty. So we have to think about that. And it's something that has to weigh on our conscience. And when we experience these moments, let's be thankful to the Lord that He has been so generous to us and He has been so kind. But let's also remember there are others there that are suffering, that are much less fortunate. And it's one of the reasons why I agree, Brother Jonkur, for us to do this show on a Christmas, so that we let our people know that even on a day like this, we are thinking about them. And we are thinking about the suffering they are going through, the sacrifices that they are making. We know. And even though we may not offer much help to them now, we can at least give them words of encouragement so that they remain hopeful. Because Christmas itself is a story of hope, how mankind was lost, and the Lord Almighty show His mercy on us by sending His beloved Son to be born by a Virgin Mary on a day like this. It's when heaven and earth became peaceful, and Lord Almighty restore His grace to mankind. So if that can happen, let's remain hopeful that Lord Almighty is a good God, the faithful Lord. And even when we face moments like this, like our people now, pretty much all of the states in Upper Nile, in Greater Upper Nile and Greater Bahr el Ghazal, they're flooded. They don't even have homes, They are evicted from a place they know as homes. And they're spending Christmas under trees, maybe in wetlands, wherever they are. They should know that Lord Almighty is a God that they can hope in. And on a day like this, I want to let them know that Christmas is about the grace of Lord. And I know the last several years have been very difficult. It's not just only this year alone. It's a disaster after disaster. Some of them are our own making. Some of them are natural and beyond our control. But I want them to know that Lord Almighty has shown his grace. He has shown it to us before, and we have seen it. Let us remain hopeful that he will show it once again, and our suffering will end, and we will begin to implement the ideals for which we have sacrificed so much. Because we are a hopeful people. And as long as we have hope, we know that victory is possible. And victory will be ours. And all the good things that we aspire for in life, we will have a chance to pursue and accomplish them. Merry Christmas to you. And may next year be a great year for people of South Sudan. May it be a year of peace. May it be a year of love. May it be a year of unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peter Biar, one more time for coming on to do this today. Very important. Last week or 2 weeks ago, you did a great presentation at the Summit for Democracy. It was organized by White House President Joe Biden, and I really watched closely a great presentation that you had on that conference. Now, what is the democracy? And when I ask you about what is democracy, I'm not looking for a definition of democracy because it is already known to those who are watching here tonight. However, I insist in asking you about what is democracy in a broader philosophical and practical point of views. It is in reality that in South Sudan, do you see some balance of democracy in South Sudan?
Well, thank you very much, Comrade Junker, for asking that question. And that question is a very legitimate and central to our discussion. Because sometimes when we talk about concepts like democracy, people automatically assume that we are not being realistic to the context from which we come. Because it's assumed that democracy is somehow something that is foreign to our ideas of thought and to how we organize ourselves. And in fact, if you look closely, this is actually false. Many of our South Sudanese societies are democratic by nature. I have lived pretty much in every region of South Sudan, and I have visited many different parts. Every culture has democracy embedded into it. Even in a house with your own wife, there's already a nature in which there is accommodation of the ideas and the feelings of other individuals and their rights to have a say in the unions that you are in, whether that union is a family, is a clan, or a tribe. So you see this being practiced. And it's really a way of life. It's how you accommodate what is called society. Because society is a combination of families. And when you have combination of families, you begin now to have different feelings, different notions of what is acceptable, what is new, what is old, what is traditional, what is foreign. And these things, they create friction. And that friction is already accommodated in advance. And this is why societies are organized and there is a way in which they're structured. So if you see in many of our African contexts, and particularly in the South Sudanese context where we come from, many of our cultures are very democratic. Even the way we select our chiefs. And by the way, some of these chiefs, they are removed, by the people. And even chief, if he cannot mess with you, he cannot come and begin usurping your properties, for example, that cannot happen. We know even some of the stories of some of the chiefs that used to think that anything good belonged to them, and they began misusing power. And we see what the consequences were in the end. So democracy is basically a system that accommodated the masses to have a say in how society is ruled. And it comes from practicality, because when you have a society that is so diverse, each clan, or say each tribe, is going to accommodate itself, and they're going to pursue their own individual interests. And you have a society with so many different clans. And if these interests are not checked, it creates basically a system of anarchy. And that anarchy basically suppresses any capacities for the society to produce. So the entire production system fails. And even the warlord themselves, who are encouraging this anarchy, begin to see that there is no benefit. So over time, you will see that to protect my own right, I have to become part of the society in which there is this thing called society, that I submit certain rights to it, but there are certain rights that still remain as sanctity, and they are sanctified just only for me. They become my fundamental rights, that even the society has no say to come in, such as my privacy, such as my right to speak and express myself, my right to associate with other individuals. So if you look in our society, this thing is there. So society, we are democratic. And what is problematic now is because of the weird nature in which the SPLM developed. Because even if you go back to the 50s, 60s, our people were always democratic. Even when they were beginning to organize and express themselves, and express like the what they saw by then as marginalization by the North, and the fact that they were not being consulted. They were talking. They were not taking up guns to shoot people. In the end, when the guns were taken, they were taken as the last resort, last absolute resort, because the political elites in the North were becoming completely unreliable. Basically, the same way, if you think about it, the political elites in South Sudan now are becoming unreliable. They cannot be trusted. Their words mean nothing, completely nothing. So that's why that became. But if you see the whole struggle, it was democratic. It was based on ideas. This is why you see different conferences being hosted here and there, around people, the gathering in Kampala and so many different regions. But what happened in the SPLM, because SPLM emerged in a very weird way, influenced by the divisions that Nimero regime were basically using to manipulate Southerners to dismantle the Addis-Ababa agreement. And these things, by the way, were two main issues, Brother Jonker. There were tribalism and regionalism, okay? These were the tools. Tribalism, basically, to divide Southerners from like thinking of themselves as one whole. Because really there was a sense of Southern nationalism that was emerging, and it was authentic. And people see themselves as brothers, whether they come from Equatoria or from Bargazal or from Upper Nile. People were identifying with one another. People like both Dew, who initially led the struggle, these were from different regions, and people felt it because they saw how the Northern Sudanese were misbehaving. So and the students were united. They suffered together. They were beaten by the police and all of these things. Now they are elders, by the way. But if you remember, now they become so tribalized, which is very funny. But if you remember back then, the things that they were doing, like when they were protesting against like the Jonglei Canal and things like that, they were doing it as one people in different regions. Not only in Upper Nile, they were doing it in Equatoria, they were doing it in Baragazal. But the Nimeri regime, because it was afraid of this, it was threatened by this, and it was being hijacked by the Islamists. Those of Trabi and the Mahdis were getting back in, and they were controlling it, right? And Nimeri was also, I think, was probably becoming drunk with power and also insane, declaring himself a sheikh and all of this nonsense. Now, there is
It was full by tribe, actually.
yeah, they resorted to using these two things, tribalism and regionalism, and they deploy them very effectively to divide our people. So then things like Kokora, and whatever, and the Dinka, and the Equatoria, and the Nuer, and what, and all of that. So now when people went to the bush, they went with all this mess. Now, conflated by the struggle over power. So you have the established leaders from the Anyanya period, and you have the new leaders that are emerging, and all of them want power. And to settle this struggle for power, they themselves resorted again to the use of the same two vices, regionalism and tribalism, right? So you have like the separation between the Anyanya leaders and what became the SPLA, SPLM. And they start fighting entirely tribalistic. And it's the same thing that happened when later on, when Riek Machar defected in 1991, he resorted again to tribalism. For John Garang to balance himself and to fight off Riek Machar, again, tribalism. Now, what is interesting now with the current president is that he is able to use both, right? So, for example, some of us, sometimes when we talk, let's say someone like Riek Machar, now, to defend off against Riek Machar is easy to use tribalism, Nuer versus Dinka. And like 2013 was the perfect example of how effectively this thing was deployed. So our people are divided so that they don't see really the fundamental issues that are happening, the issues of governance, the issues of state, the issues of like their welfare, what is happening to themselves, to their families, what is going on with their future. And then now, when people like Peter Biar talk, because tribalism doesn't work because we are all Dinka.
It has to be put in the same bin.
So then he goes to regionalism. He become all of a sudden now, he's from Bor. And he's talking with the Barghazal. So become like a Barghazal. And then now I'm all of a sudden from Upper Nile. If the issue is Riek, then all of a sudden we are all together Dinka. You see? And this is how he has been able to divide the South Sudanese people. So people have these grievances, and there are so many. And all of us, by the way, have messed up, because this thing was something the enemy was deploying against us. It was a weakness. It was a way in which we fall apart. Like if you see now what is happening in these clubhouses and the way people are talking, is this tribalism and regionalism that have taken root in us. And if we hold on to those ideas, then we are not leaving a room in our heart for South Sudan to emerge, because we are sticking to these identities, and they're not even real. They're not real. They're not the word that define us. We know we are one. Take, for example, my wife is a Nuer, and she herself, her own mother is a Dinka. And it's like that with so many people. Now we live in the same house. If there is any difference in the way we behave, in the way we do anything, everything is the same. We're the same people. Our cultures, norm, and values are the same. But we are allowing these regionalism and tribalism to be used to corrupt us, because the product of it is corruption and violence. Because what is being pursued with this tribalism and regionalism? Nothing. It's not like they care about me, or they care about certain priorities to a Dinka, or certain priorities to Upper Nile or Equatoria or Barghazal. There is no such a thing. Each one of them want to maintain power. And why do they want power? is so that they can loot resources. So it become issue of like corruption, and it become issue of then using violence. Violence now and corruption are the tools that are used with regionalism and tribalism as what is basically the foundation of this division to prevent people of South Sudan from speaking with one voice, so that democracy doesn't emerge, so that we think this is foreign. How is it foreign? In our own tribes, we know that we have chiefs, we have relatives, we participate. There's family meeting. There are certain things that no one can just come from nowhere and come and interfere.
Even the court is very democratic.
Even court, you can go to the court with a chief, and another chief will be the one to do it, not himself. Like here in Juba, you have the general, and he's also the one that is taking the matters in his own hand. He's the one arresting you, and you're the one having a dispute with him. So he's like arbitrator, and at the same time, the judge in the same case. So this thing is a corruption, and it's because of these regionalism and tribalism that our people are divided. And I think sometimes we blame the leaders too much. But to cure the country of these vices, the work really is individual. Because if we allow them to define us and to take root in us, this division will go all the way to our families, because it will not stop at the level of Dinga or Nuer or Acholi or Bari or Kakwa or Acholi or whatever. Or it will go. And with these divisions, it will go into your clan. You will go and say, oh yeah, we are this clan and we are this clan. Oh, and those are this, that. And then within your clan, we are this section and that section, and we are like this, and then all the way down to your family. And the product of it will be just more and more division. What we want is to unite our people, to unite our country, so that we can focus on things that other people in the world are focusing on. Because challenges are increasing day by night. New challenges are emerging. Challenges like climate change. The world is being overpopulated. Look, our neighbors, like Ethiopia, is 115 million. Now they're having war in their country. What if, say, for example, certain tribe just decide like 10 million of their people are going to move into South Sudan? Who is going to stop them now if we continue to allow ourselves to be divided? And they can just come and settle. Migration has just been happening in Africa for so long. And you can make it international issue, whatever. That issue will be dealt with. Everybody in the world is facing this problem. Within the next 70 years, Africa is expected to be home to 40% of humankind. Just imagine that. That's like India and China combined. We are busy killing our people. Our people are dying in mass, whether of starvation or we're killing them ourselves. The rest of the region is exploding with people. And our country is so fertile, so rich with resources. Where do you think these people are going to go?
Of course.
They're going to come to they're going to grab our land. Already you see it, what is happening with the Lemi Triangle. And with the way things are going, do you think even our people, our government is even talking about it? No. The dispute with Sudan, now it was supposed the problem was Omar al-Bashir government. Now you have a democratic government. Yeah. Why is it not resolved? Where is mile 14? Kasir Fengi. We are not even talking about Pantho anymore. It's already gone. What you see is the region is exploding. And although those people are looking for resources and investment in coming, and the population is not just only within South Sudan, is globally. Even China, they are bringing their people. They're settling in many different parts of the world. So if we don't get our act together and begin to organize, we won't even have a country we call our own. Because the country will be sold so cheaply. It will be used as a collateral to go and borrow loans that make no sense and that are not even invested in accomplishing anything in our country. And then our children will have nothing. So this is our country. Everybody in the world have their own country. is your home. You don't burn down your own home. You protect your home because this is where your children are. This is where your wife is. This is where your mother is. Why are we allowing regionalism and tribalism to burn down our country? So that we are sticking to leaders that don't give a damn about our country and about our future. Why? Because this region want to be the superior. Why do we need to be superior than other people? Why don't we understand that humanity is beautiful in its own way, that each one of us is a reflection of divine perfection in his or her own special way? I can never be you, my brother Jonker. And you are amazing in the way you are. God has given you so much. That is a blessing, not only to your family, but to the rest of us as a society. And that contribution is welcome, is what makes humanity unique, is what builds civilization, is when each one of us is able to inject his or her own special creativity, that we are able to build amazing, complex, new thing that is a reflection of all of our own unique identities. This is our country. So instead of allowing hate and envy to destroy us, let us give this country a chance. Because otherwise, we can just divide it up if this is what we want. Let us say Barghazal be a region. Let Upper Nile be its own country. Let's say Equatoria be its own country. If Equatoria want to join Uganda or Kenya, they can go. If Upper Nile want to join Ethiopia or Sudan, they can go. If Barghazal want to join Central African Republic or Congo or wherever, they can go. But if we are going to stay as a country, then let's build that country. And let's give that country some values that actually are rooted in the identity of our people.
Correct.
Country that is loving, country that is, is beautiful, country that is caring, country that is so rich, that is welcoming, that is joyful, that is loving. And we can make it happen. It's within our control. So part of hoping and having hope, and I want us to make this Christmas a Christmas of hope, is to also know that we have to put in action. We have to put in work. Because faith alone is not a route to salvation. Just saying that I believe in Jesus Christ will not take you to heaven. Or saying I believe in a great South Sudan will not make it happen. It's by you working for it. And this work may take sacrifices from you. And is to be willing to know that it's a great honor for a citizen to sacrifice for his country. There's a special feeling for it. This is why soldiers go to battlefield and die for their country. It's the height of all human glory. And when your country demands a bit of you so that it can reach its potential, it should be a duty of a citizen to respond to that call. So let us respond to this call. And this country called South Sudan, there is nowhere else people will be brought from to come and build it. It's us that have to build it. And for us to do that, we have to let tribalism and regionalism out of our heart and allow South Sudan to replace that and begin treating each other like brothers and sisters the way that we truly are.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Peter Biar. Actually, you covered everything. Even I have a question, but I wouldn't go and ask you that question anymore. I'm going to go ahead and skip that question. Now, you are seeing in Western quarters advocating for democracy through election. Is that going to be possible under the current leadership? And how? You're already aware what happening. People cannot speak up. They cannot gather. They cannot form any political organization. They cannot talk. Walk us through.
So this is a question, and I think one of the things we have to do here is divide the layers of responsibility for the elections to take place. They are both about a current government, but also they are also about us. There is a part of work that the leaders need to do, and there is a part of work that we, the people, need to do. So we are not just going to stay and not doing anything because leaders don't want to do anything. The part that require us as a people, we can do it on our own, and we don't need the leaders for us to do that. There are two things. There are the fundamental things that need to happen. We agree that the security sector need to be unified, because you need an environment that can allow for contestation, political contestation that is sometimes heated to take place. So that requires unification of forces. We can't have three commanders in chief the way we have Salva and Riek and Abdel Baghe. We have to have one commander in chief, and we have to have an army that is not just dominated by one section the way that it is now. So that is fundamental. Second, we need to have a constitution. And it should be very clear from the very beginning what should be in this constitution. First, there must be term limits. This is a common sense. Countries that have term limits rarely go to war. Because even if you have a bad president, the way we have in South Sudan, you can tolerate this president for certain 2 terms, maybe 8 years or 10 years, and this guy cannot run again. And then God may give you a better president. So you as a people may not need to go to war to try to get rid of that person. We need that in South Sudan. We need to have term limits, and we need to decide, are we going to do election every 4 years or 5 years? And whoever runs can run for only 2 terms. Second is issue of how we structure government and what is the government even supposed to accomplish. Our people have been talking about federalism for so long. And it's very clear that this is what they want. And it's important that we have a federal system because we want to empower. It's a country so big and it's also diverse. Let's not pretend that we have the same norms and values. There are certain differences, and it's great. Even here in the United States, there are regional differences. And they don't need to be removed. They're great. That's what makes us unique. They need to be encouraged. So you need to be able to determine, how do you empower people and give them voice to be able to govern and determine their affairs at the local level, while at the same time still creating a room for this new thing called South Sudan to emerge. So you also want to preserve national identity, and you want to build that. You want to build a nation. But you want to empower local governance and delivery of services. So that arrangement needs to be determined because it's about sharing sovereignty. So what kind of powers are you going to give to the local level? And what kind of powers are you going to give to the national levels? And how should those levels be constituted? Are they just the 10 states? Are we going with the 28 states that was tried, 32 states last time? Riek has the 23 states. There was the 21 districts. There's all of these things. So what is the appropriate unit? And how is that going to be determined? This doesn't need us to fight. It's about how do we organize ourselves better so that we are able to confront the challenges that our country face. Because we are dealing with legacies of underdevelopment, of neglect. And we have to catch up at a time when new challenges like climate change are emerging and our ecosystem is changing dramatically. And if we don't begin to prepare our people may cease to exist. They may cease to exist. And especially the way we are exploiting our natural resources. They're destroying us instead of empowering us. And that is the disaster that our people are not seeing. We are so blinded by the short-term greed that we are not able to see, if this plays out for these many years, what would it mean for our people? Because these resources will be depleted. And when they are depleted and we have not built other kind of assets, we have just made ourselves much, much poorer. And how are we then going to compete with our neighbors and with all the other people in the region that are encroaching into our land, into our territories, and that are expanding? It will mean warfare, and we will be very disadvantaged. So we have to begin really being serious about this country called South Sudan. Now, I said these things need to be determined by people. So the constitution is very important. That need to happen. Census has to happen. Because to be honest, the 2008 census was not very well done. I was involved in it. Initially, I started being involved in it when I was at the Ministry of Finance at a technical level. And then I continued with it when I was the World Bank country economist. I was deeply involved with it. It was very inaccurate. Part of it was exaggerated. Some of it was underrepresented. So it doesn't really represent our population. And by then, there was also a lot of people that were still in the North, that were counted as part of the North, who have since then returned to South Sudan. Now, the challenge is, because of the war, a lot of people are displaced. And it's very important that we address this issue of displacement, because it comes out all the time. And people say we cannot have election with people displaced. First of all, no one can force those people to return. When you leave your country, return is voluntary. It's you who decide to come, and at what time to come, and under what condition to come. If you still feel afraid and threatened, you're not going to come. And our people feel insecure. Look, in Juba, they are staying at UNMISS, and it's the capital. And Riek Machar is there in Juba. Salva Kiir is there in Juba. All the warlords are in Juba, except for a few who are still in the bush. But most of the warlords are now in Juba. But the people they don't feel secure. So how would you convince now those who have fled the country that they should come back when you have not really addressed the fundamental? I was in Kakuma as a child. And there are people I left in Kakuma that are still there today. And they never went back to South Sudan. So what makes you think that these people will return? So the issue of return is an issue that will be determined by the conditions in the ground that force each individual to leave in the first place. And they cannot be forced to return. It's even against the international law to do so. So that one is that. But that should not prevent elections. Elections have to happen. Even in Ethiopia, election just happened in June, and they were going through war. And even when we were in Sudan, elections were happening. So this thing of continuing to delay election is problematic. So what we need to think about is, what is the necessary condition that need to happen? As I said, issue of census is very important. Issue of a constitution is very important, especially delineation of power. There is no reason a president should fire a governor that is elected by the people. So if a governor is elected, that is like here in America, the president cannot just fire a governor because he doesn't like the governor or he fears the governor, the way our president do in South Sudan. Governor has constitutional rights. It's appointed by the people, and that need to be written into our constitution. And it's something that we need to understand. There is a difference between loyalty to individual and loyalty to the country, because that position will change and another one will come in. But you want to create a system that is self-correcting, that ensures that a society is just, that is prosperous, and that is free, so that each individual is able to truly express their uniqueness and what makes them different. And that is the way we can build this amazing South Sudan that we all dream for. So that need to happen. Now, that one need leaders. So leaders need to push and make this thing happen. And we need to push leaders. So this is where our work comes in as a people. We need to push the leaders to implement the peace agreement, and then to understand they cannot take us for a ride. And that if they continue thinking they can take us for a ride, we reserve the right to use any means necessary, including going on the street and demanding public uprising and an immediate overthrow of this government. That is possible. And with the way the economy is so mismanaged, it's easy for that situation to materialize if we demand for it. So people must understand that, right? It's very important that this thing is understood. It's not that it's not doable. What do you mean it's not doable? It's doable. Just because you block few meetings here and there does not mean that the people of South Sudan are entirely suppressed. Yes, the government is strong, and we know the strength of that power, but people are stronger. The people of South Sudan are stronger. And even though they are being fed constantly with this tribalism and regionalism, they still know who they are, and they still know the sacrifices they made to make this country independent. And they reserve the right to build that country. So the government should also not be too arrogant. And already the world is sending the signal that it doesn't trust these leaders. So if you take, for example, during the Democracy Summit, by the way, the day that I was privileged to speak and to address the conference, two things happened. I addressed the conference, but at the same time, the same day, the Senate unanimously passed the Resolution 380, calling for a complete review of U.S. policy towards South Sudan. And one of the things it says is that it says the leaders of South Sudan are illegitimate. They're illegitimate. They were never elected by the people, right? Because we never had elections since independence. We have leaders that are either appointed, like the President Salva Kiir,
extensions,
or leaders that are there because they took up arms and killed people, like the 5 vice presidents and all the other warlords, basically. Can you say any of these people are legitimate? No. They don't even, some of them don't even really understand the struggle for South Sudan. Because they just, they're just there because they're warlords. So the world is saying that. And they basically instructed the Secretary of State to do a complete review of U.S. policy towards South Sudan and begin working with other leaders other than Kiir and Machar. And it's mentioned by name. You can go and read Resolution 380, passed by 100 senators. 100 senators. Every single one senator voted for it. Whether a Republican, Democrat, Independent, voted for it, saying that they have no confidence in the leaders of South Sudan, that their words cannot be taken seriously because they keep on going back on their words. They say the election will happen in 2015. Then they started a war. They extended the election to 2018. 2018 came, they extended the election to 2021. 2021 came, they extended the election to 2022. 2022 came, they extended 2023. And now, even though after them, himself, President Kiir, saying that the election is going to happen in 2023, he probably will extend it again. So the world is saying we have seen this. So now, Secretary of State, you are instructed to begin working with other leaders to bring about a democratic South Sudan that is accountable, that respects human rights, that ensure freedoms of its people. So already that one is there. Basically, that one is there. And the thing is, we as the people can work, because we also know that these disease of tribalism and regionalism are being used to entrench these leaders in power. So let's begin addressing them. Let's begin addressing them. Let's have a sincere discussion and begin to reconcile among our people. Because that way we prepare the space for these people to live without us firing a single bullet. It's doable. And in fact, this is what we are going to do. right? So we as a people of South Sudan, we begin talking among ourselves. Let's build a coalition, grand coalition of Dinkas, of Nuers, of Equatorians, of Mahdi, of Bari, of Shuluk, of Murle, of everybody, showing that we are one people. We can live together, that this nonsense that we are tribes and we are regions and that we don't belong together is nonsense, that we can allow this South Sudan to emerge. And we can create a space in our hearts and we begin addressing each other. And let's work on this constitution. We can build our own drafts, right? We can build our own drafts. So let's work on this constitution. So that one we can do. And let's begin demanding. If these leaders are taking us for granted, we take that. The third is there is a way actually to make leaders accountable. Basically, what Salva Kiir has been doing is very illegal. Is basically taking power and never going back to the people. Is basically taking the power of people as his own. Because he was supposed to come for elections. There's no way you can just extend and keep on extending. Is illegitimate. He's declaring himself a dictator, which he is. So you cannot say that he's not a dictator. He's a dictator. You know, and the thing is, most of the time, by the way, people are okay with dictators, as long as they're bringing development, they're bringing prosperity. Even Museveni is a dictator in Uganda. But the difference with Museveni is Museveni has a vision of what he wants from his country. He's empower his people. He basically pick up Uganda, pretty much where Salva Kiir has taken South Sudan now, a very weak, divided country, and he built it into a powerhouse in the region. So yes, it's a trade. Yes, people are not as free. But by the way, guess what? They're freer than they are in South Sudan. You can talk in Uganda. You have elections in Uganda. You can run in Uganda. There's nothing in South Sudan. And worse, he goes for 6 months without paying his own army, without paying his diplomat for 2 years, without paying anybody. And the thing is, the oil is running. So it's not even like there is no money. It's because that is the weakest excuse ever. How is it that there is no money? There is money. But the money is going to different priorities, right? So it's even worse. So you can't say I can be a dictator like other dictators. Other dictators are doing something. You know, they're building their parties. Look at the NRM. It's a real party. What is SPLM? SPLM now has become a party of those of Tutkal, who was basically the one that Khartoum was using to destroy it. Mm. And when people like Larson Angok, they sing what Lualding World said, which he's not even the one who said it, it's Lualding who said it, and both Sulfur was there when this thing was said, that SPLM, he come and take a fat kid of another person and throw down its weak and basically skinny child. Is that not true? Look now, who is controlling things in South Sudan? And then they have created instrument of violence in the national security. So you have the dogs, basically those of Akolokur, who are there running to bite people. So you have, and what they're using as tool for that is tribalism and regionalism to divide our. Oh, this is Barghazal. Oh, this is Bor. Oh, this is Nuer. This is a Chuluk. Oh, these people, you have not seen them. Basically manipulating our people so that they don't see the looting that is happening, the killing that is happening, and all the other terrible things that are happening. The good thing is the world has seen it. And even our neighbors now are in a situation where they will have to act. So it's not like this thing is like something, even Kiir himself knows in his own mind. You cannot run this infinitely. You cannot just stay a dictator, not elected by the people. You just appoint everybody. Now there are people appointed that are apparently MPs from Twitches. None of us from Twitches even know them. And they are now our MPs. Why can't we vote for our MPs? Why? So we don't know how to vote. So we have to take up arms for us to vote. So this is ridiculous, right? So there have to be elections. So they have to happen. And when they don't happen, because what Kiir has been doing is so illegal, now everybody is talking about another option. And that is when a coup d'etat happened, essentially what happened is there's a military junta that take up power. And it's illegitimate because they were not elected by the people. They took it by force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if you don't take it by force, but you still take it and you take it illegitimately? It's still illegitimate because you did not take it through election.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say this time they extend again without consensus of South Sudanese people. That would be illegitimate. And the international community may not recognize it, given already what I'm seeing in the Senate, that the 100 senators said that they have no confidence in Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. What is the likelihood that if they unilaterally extend again and they're not delivering anything and the corruption is still going on, and the violence is still going on, NSS is still getting away with its killing and torturing, and daily unknown gunmen that people are going through in Juba. What would be the what will give anybody confidence that these people can take the country to elections? Basically, the conclusion would be this is just no different than a coup d'etat. It's a legitimate extension of power, and therefore it cannot be recognized by the international community. Now, of course, they will then try to entrench themselves by force, but this is where you begin to really see things fall apart for them, because by then there are a number of options that can be exploited. One of the things that has been discussed is basically issuing a court order saying that anybody that lend money to South Sudan, if there is a change of government in the future, then these loans will not be enforceable in the US and the United Kingdom. This basically accounts for like 80% of all finance that is moving in the world. So if you are China and you let me borrow and you let Salva Kiir borrow money, you know that no one will enforce this. And tomorrow, if there's a change of power and somebody else comes to power and they decide that they're not going to pay China, that's it. Right? So what will happen automatically, nobody will lend money to South Sudan immediately. That is one option. The other extreme option is what happened in Iraq, because now international community is basically feeding the people of South Sudan. $1 billion a year is spent by the US. EU is spent about 600 billion a year. 600 million. You have Canada is spending money. So what would happen automatically? You will say you can do oil for food. Why is oil being stolen when it can be used to feed the people of South Sudan? So then what you do is the oil will still flow. You bring the UN forces to protect the oil fields. You let the oil flow. And the money is put into an account that the government of South Sudan cannot access. That is also possible. So the thing is, what I'm saying here is, the South Sudan is such a small country that it cannot act with impunity in the international community. Yes, there is sovereignty, and we understand. But let them read Francis Mading. Francis Mading was a part of a very big movement in the 1990s that was focused on sovereignty and especially state failure. What happened when a sovereign country is not able to project its sovereignty, when it's not able to carry out its obligation, and the rest of the neighbors are being led by the failures of this state? If there is a role for international community to play. If there is such a thing as responsibility to protect. So this ended up being adopted as actually of the United Nations. Yeah.
There is a very important question here I wanted to ask you. And actually, the leader of National Democratic Movement, Dr. Lamakol, wrote an article a couple of days ago outlining what needed to happen in order to have a successful election in South Sudan. But before I ask you that question, this government has been using political deception, as you know. So what can prevent them from not rigging election again? They can rig an election and say, oh, yeah, we won, because now they have been squeezed from all over. And then they can say, rig it, for instance, and again, write themselves legitimacy. Don't you see that angle as well?
I see that. But that would mean that they had succeeded in continuing to manipulate our people using tribalism and regionalism. Because without tribalism and regionalism, our people will see clearly that these people are unfit to lead the country. And this is our part. This is the work that we play also as individuals. We have to let our people know that we have to come together as one people, and we will begin to act in ways that bring us together. So this is why it really requires new leaders across different communities to emerge, to allow this South Sudan to emerge. It's not one person that can make this happen. It's us collectively making this happen. So we begin to stand up. So you see recently, a lot of young people are speaking out now in large numbers from different community. And they are saying that they reject what is happening. And if these voices are heard at the local level by the people, then it will become difficult for President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar to even run. Why do you think they keep on postponing election? Just see what happened in the national dialogue. People said it. They said these people should go home. Salva Kiir and Riek Machar should go home. They will say this again. And even if they need to say this with their votes, they will say this. And this is why we need to build a security sector that is not just determined by loyalty to this individual. And this is also why the elections have to be internationally guaranteed. And you have to have a sufficient UN force. You will have to increase the current force in the ground by 5,000. And it's one of the things that we are going to work hard on, because each year the UNMISS is authorized. The mandate of the UNMISS is authorized by the Security Council. And the United States is the pen holder on this issue. And simultaneously with the issue of arm embargo, so that we really see a security sector emerging that has some values and have some norms. And when that happens, then people will begin saying exactly what they said during the national dialogue. They will say it in rallies. They will say, these people have failed. And by then, both Salva Kiir and Riek Machar will see that they have no other option but to go home. And if they don't go home, I do believe they will be voted out, because the tools that they're using now, tribalism and regionalism, will become so predictable. And the more we talk to our people about these vices and let them know the way the leaders are using them, the more our people will become immune. And the more we mobilize more younger people, and especially younger leaders across different communities and different tribes, and we empower them to go to the ground and to talk to their people, the more you will begin to see a new generation of leadership emerging that embrace South Sudan instead of the region, and a real check on Salva Kiir and Riek Machar and the ability to manipulate. Look, what they have to understand is no one is against them. They can stay in the country. They can advise. They have other ways. But the thing is, they cannot run the country anymore, because the running of the country has been so awful. It has even destroyed the reputation of our people. We are now seen as like people that cannot govern themselves, people that cannot manage anything. And we have excused this for so long, and it divided our people to the level that even our people are so divided and they're so bitter against each other, and no one has benefited. It's them and the individual cliques. But majority of South Sudanese have not benefited. So what we will need is basically a way for our people to express themselves. And election provide that for us, because we will tell them that we are tired of you, we are sick of you. Thank you for whatever good thing you have done. We forgive you for the bad thing that you have done to us, but you have to go home.
Thank you. Now, the leader of National Democratic, and I pointed that out a moment ago, Dr. Lama Kola Jawin, came up last week with political proposal for election in December 2022. In accordance with the provision of Revitalized Peace Agreement of 2018. He stated that elections should be held under the supervision of international bodies and troops by the end of next year, with all the prerequisites that he laid down here. And I know you talk about some of them, while you were having discussion. The adoption of constitutional by the NCAC, permanent constitution, demilitarized of the areas, resettlement of IDPs, provision of security, population, reforming of judiciary, formation of technical, which is judicial reform committees, Review of Judicial Act, the population census, laws that must be in place before election, and finally, the conduct of election on December 22, 2022. This is to be done within the coming next year. It means that Dr. Lamakol and silent majority of South Sudanese are for eager political transitions and would like to see this within year of 2022, which is coming up, and not in the year of 2023, as is stated in this. Now, what is your take, Dr. Biar, on this political proposal? Will it be practical as parties of the revitalized peace agreement, as long as they lost the political will? I want your intake on this.
Well, Dr. Lam is technically right, right? When it comes to the timetable, actually, it's supposed to be by March, actually, 2022 is when this election would be held. Because if you look at what happened before, the agreement was signed in September, and if you calculate the timeline, then it was supposed the thing is supposed to end by May 12, 2022. So the government will need to be extended because its mandate, basically the lifeline would have failed. And it's such a shame. It's a reflection on how terrible the leadership in the country has failed. And Dr. Lam is right. Of all the things that need to be done, all those laws, by the way, need to be reformed. And it's very important that the work begin. And if there is a will, this election can be held. It's just that there is no will, because you have leaders that know that they are so unpopular and they will never be voted in by the people. So they're doing everything they can to basically extend the stay. And technically what they are playing for is to have this thing be extended by 2 years. If you heard the speech of Riek Machar during the governors forum, what he was talking about was basically an extension, because now he's in disarray, and he's talking that there's been all these delays, and funny enough, he has been so quiet. People have been wondering, where has he been? And then he basically appeared from nowhere, and then he was talking about changing the country name and all these other nonsense that people were not even expecting. But what people were expecting from him was to continuously talk about the implementation of the peace agreement, which has been very quiet on. So if there is will and there is no will, right? This is why I say, and by the way, and this is why it's important what the Senate has done here, because that is a very important signal. And I keep repeating it because people in South Sudan, I know they are myopic. If you look in the national security, because I worked there in the office of the president, I know the kind of characters that are there. They're very myopic. They don't analyze things. So this thing has probably gone unnoticed. But if they notice, then
they did not talk about it, yes.
Then it means basically no one has confidence in you. And if the United States has no confidence in you, and you think you're going to run to China, because now this is the game that they're going to try to play. They will run to China. No, it's not going to work, because China, at the end of the day, although it has enormous promise, also care about performance. You can't just loot a country resource without performing. Even China, they want to serve their people. They want a system that is accountable. They want things that work. They don't want just a country that is just hopelessly corrupt and is not even being basically governed. It's like anarchy. So no one wants that, not even Russia. So any partner they will have will still push them to perform and to be accountable. So it's better that they begin. And the thing is, it's good for them to live with dignity, because this is the chance that they have. And it's good that they go and stay in their houses. So I think really, if there is will, it should be done. And Dr. Lam is right. These things need to happen, but they will not just happen without us doing tangible things. So the thing is, we have to be organized. Youth association in the country. We have all these communities. What they need to understand is SPLM has been basically killed. There's no longer really SPLM. All the revolutionaries are gone. You have now a party of Tutkel. And it's very funny. And it's very clear how recently the SPLM announced that they're going to partner with NCP in the next election. Just imagine, NCP has been criminalized in North Sudan, right?
Yeah.
If you remember, it's a criminal organization. It's basically a terrorist organization in North Sudan. This is what the SPLM want to partner with to go into election. Why? This is a party that supposedly liberated the country. Is going to partner with the NCP, the party that it was fighting against. So that what is the thing? Just for power. They don't even have any ideology anymore. If you ask today, what is Salva Kiir for? What is he for? What is he standing for? Okay, what is Riek Machar standing for? Yes, you may have a feeling of like regional thing, yeah, or like tribal thing, but in terms of ideology, it's not like they care about prosperity of your country. Look at the floods. Look at the hunger. Look at all the indicators. Are they being addressed? Did anyone even come to visit you?
And he said he was for reform. Where is the reform right now?
What is the reform? It's just signing letters from Juba. Is that the condolence? Here in the US, if there's a fire and 3 people die, the president will fly there the next day.
Absolutely.
And be in solidarity with them, right? And it's a country of 350 million. Imagine just a country of like 8 million, South Sudan, 8 million. And the president doesn't even care when like entire state, like northern, like Unity State, for example, now, is all underwater. And what is so disastrous in Unity State is that there has already been leakages of oil. So the entire, like say, Dinkangok and the Nuer communities there, they're basically living in pollution. So oil has been basically there on the ground. And the oil companies and the Chinese, with the national security, they're in cahoots. There's been reports, even discussed at the level of the NILPAD board, where even the DG of national security was there, where it was very clear that there is all this pollution, but instead of helping the people, they hid in the report. They hid the report. And basically what happened now, or because of the flood, the waste is dumped somewhere nearby, right? And now with the flood, the waste and the water mix. And it basically is spread everywhere, everywhere. So it's in food, it's in the cattle that you eat, meat that you eat, is everywhere, everywhere. And people are being killed. And what is happening with the proceeds of this oil? What is happening with them? There's no salaries being paid. The currency has lost value, right? So it's not an issue of them pointing hands at like imaginary enemies and using regionalism and tribalism to point at things. It's an issue of realities that people are dealing with. So elections is the only way to get rid of them, because the thing is, if we fight them with guns, we are falling into the same cycle that they want to feed, because this is a cycle of violence and a cycle of corruption, and the tool that they use are tribalism and regionalism. So we have to come back and talk to our people and keep on repeating the same message over and over again. And the good thing now, there is social media. So even if they control the South Sudan STV, we have other means that we can talk. Like you now, Jonkur, you're offering this platform and we are able to talk. So the work is, forget what the leaders can do, but what can we begin to do? How do we begin behaving in such a way that promotes national cohesion? And there are a lot of influences on top, even from my own community, right? A lot of them are very influential. And when they speak on issues, a lot of people in the world pay attention. Now, what if they choose today to begin talking in a way that builds this collective sense of identity, a way that empower people? Is there power? I'm not saying like let Biar be the next president of South Sudan. I'm saying let's have Sudan vote. Let the people of South Sudan determine who the next president should be. If they want Salva Kiir, they will say so. But what I know is they will not want him, because they already said in the national dialogue. So even if he imposes it himself, he will be humiliated. He will be shocked. And I think this is some of the discussion he will have with his immediate family and his people, because the reality is both he and Riek Machar will be humiliated. And there are other leaders, even within the government in South Sudan now, right? Even we can forgive other things that have happened. and build a grand coalition so that we can get rid of these leaders and begin really empowering our people and building the kind of society that we all sacrifice for.
Thank you, Peter Biar. Now, you talk about the unity, how we collectively, people of South Sudan, need to, to unite in order to get rid of this system. You have seen what happening, and you point a little bit, something about it in this, in the clubhouses, how people have been talking. The division is rooted, and the tribalists are gaining momentum. Actually, they start more preaching hate. And I salute Adwag Nyaba actually coming out and said, this is not what's gonna take this country to the next level. So now, President Kiir and his group actually they get entertained when they hear all these division are happening more and more, and people are more divided, talking about the tribe, talking about the communities, and widening the gap. What can we do in order to get to that point? Because right now, it won't happen unless we put act together, as you say. What can we do to bring all this coalition together, the coalition that you're talking about, to get there?
We can begin countering that narrative. So instead of allowing these people to be the one taking all the oxygen out of the room, let's also talk about a narrative that is different than their own. And instead of entrenching tribalism, let's begin to entrench South Sudanese national identity. And let's discuss issues. What is it that, because some bad things have happened, right? Because these were the cleavages that the North Sudan used against us. And these are basically the same cleavages that were used in the SPLM for power struggle, whether for during the time of Dr. John or since Salva Kiir took over. So the issue now is, how do we put a stop on this cycle and allow South Sudan to emerge? Because otherwise, we are not giving South Sudan a chance. We are not giving this nation a chance. So we have to, those of us that know what is right, and there are, by the way, in Upper Nile, in Barghazal, in Equatoria, and let us begin challenging that narrative and begin talking as a nation. We know that we are one people and our destiny is shared. What we can discuss now are issues like, how do we structure government in such a way that empower people of the local people to make their own decisions? How do we empower people? So that one can be arranged. And yes, it's true. Bad things have happened. And none of us is perfect, right? So we also need to approach this debate with humility, because there's a lot of hurt that has happened. Being have killed each other. This 2 million that died, it were our own people killing each other. And it was regionalism and tribalism that were used as tools to kill them. So they are entrenched, and it requires really a different spirit and a different generation, different awakening for us to let go of the past. And this is why this message today, that we are doing this on a Christmas day, a day in which the Son of the Lord returned to us. If we are a Christian and we believe in God Almighty, then what God wants from us is to be people that are good neighbors to one another, that love their neighbors. That was the greatest commandment that Christ himself taught, and is why he came, so that he can die for our sin. So we have done bad things to each other in the past as tribes and as regions. And of course, there are issues of pride and ego, and we are not particularly well educated as a society. Education is new for us. We just began. So there's a lot we don't know, and there's a lot we don't understand. And sometimes we are arrogant than we mean. So we have to create a space and allow some grace to exist, so that we tolerate certain things and develop thick skin. It doesn't mean these things are okay. They have to be addressed. And this is why we have to address them. Because the only way to address them is through leadership. Government is the strongest institution we have. The second institution is church. And church is doing its best. And I want to see more from the church, because the church should be preaching the good news of the New Testament to our people, so that they understand it. Because our people identify as Christian, but they have not really truly internalized the message of Jesus Christ. So if we really put love in our heart, and we treat each other as brothers, we love one another the way we love ourselves, then we can become good Christian, and that will create a space for us to be a good citizen to one another and to be good neighbors. So I think this is doable, but it's a challenge. It's going to require all of us to begin working. And there's a lot of people on social media, even a lot of people that are watching now. There is something they can do. The way they post, the way they talk, the debates they engage in, the way they speak, they can encourage unity because there's no leaders. Like we have to assume, because we're a country, it's like a country that has been orphaned. It's like when you are, like many of us in the Red Army, and this is one thing that I remember from our experience. We were basically like orphaned. Although our parents were there, we were taken from them and kept on our own. So we grew up on our own. So when the parents are not there, you rise up to the challenge. You assume responsibility.
Yeah.
And you begin doing what you can do in your own capacity. And through that, you begin realizing that you can actually do things. So we are younger people, our elders that should know better and should want to prepare us so that we can take forward this country. What they are interested in is killing us. My good friend Carbino, may his soul rest in peace, was hunted down and killed. Why? Because he's a young person that threatened people. My good friend Abraham Majak from Rumbek, Majang Maliap, he was hunted down, captured. And the way he was killed was even humiliating because they took machetes. They said they're not going to use guns on him. And they just basically kill him with machetes. These are, if this was tribalism, if this was real, okay? If this thing, the logic that the government is using, this is a government of Dinka. These are Dinkas, some of the brightest, some of the most gifted young people we'll ever have. They were hunted down, captured. Dao Makoi, young man with potential. They were captured and killed. If it was regionalism, okay, they were from Bargazal. They're not from Bor or Ngok, because sometimes this thing, regionalism, is used more effectively when the person that is raising issue is from Upper Nile, like when it was from Dinkabor or from Ngok. It would be, Emen Bor, he's the son of Bor, and this is why he's behaving. Carbino is from Tony. Akolkur, the mother of Kolkur is aunt to Carbino. Carbino told me himself when a Kolkur wife gave birth in Capoeira, it's Carbino that took Madida to a Kolkur wife. Akol went there and killed Carbino. Right? They're from Tony. Majang Maliap from Rumbek. So if the issue of Barghazalism, why are they killed? So these things are tools just used to divide us. But in reality, they don't care whether you're from Barghazal, whether you are Dinka, whether you Dong somewhere. If the issue was Nuer, when he was captured, it was his own cousin that went and lured him. His own cousin Nuer, because he's part of the system. And then they were taken. They were slaughtered. They didn't want to use that brutality. You know that these people, that they don't care about us. It's not about us. This is about themselves. They lie to us, and then they use this ism to divide us. Tribalism. I'm a Dinka. So what? So what? I have no problem with the Nuer. I have no problem with anybody. In fact, I find their culture beautiful. One of the things that I love is the diversity of our culture. When I see a Choli dance or Zande dance, this is one thing that I miss about our country. When I used to travel, I go and eat whatever the local food. I spent so many days in Mundari cattle camp when I used to organize wrestling. Immersing myself in their culture was beautiful. So this ism, they don't exist. These are not our problem. They're just used to control us, and it's within our control. So if people that are watching here today, if they begin to act, and they begin to realize it's just they're being used as tools to loot the country, to kill their own brothers. But it's not like there is anything that is happening. If you look, I went myself to Akon just before I was arrested in May. When I went there, I even went and got sick in that area. There's no water. There's no water. This is where the president comes from.
Yes.
There's no water. People will have to go walk for so long to go and get water. So when you come here, you think is the Awanachan people that are benefiting. In reality, they're just suffering like everybody. And then other tribes, they come and look, is Dinka. And then in Dinka, we look now is Barghazal. But then when you come in, it's just elite. And this elite, they come from everywhere. They have Boer in them. They have Nuer in them. They have Equatorians in them. They have everybody, Barghazal in them. Everybody is in there. Malwal Gernyang, Rumbek, Agar. Everybody is there. So those elites are the one eating. And now they create this ism. And they are okay there. They capture each other. Last time, people had to die at J1. Remember the fight happened in 2016. And then Salva Kiir and Riek Machar are okay. And then the sons of nobody are dead. And then they're shaking hands and they're laughing. They come next day, they form their government. And they move on. So they're just using us. And then now they come and appoint their wives. Like Riek Machar appoint his wife to be the defense minister. And his son-in-law somewhere there. And we have this woman that is Minister of Health that cannot even speak. He cannot even tell us what the virus is, what is the name of the virus, what precaution that should be taken. And she's now the Minister of Health. So they're just making mockery of our people.
Mm-hmm.
And then they keep using this ism. So we have to, at some point, realize this game is complete nonsense. Everybody has potential. And every South Sudanese has the right to aspire for whatever his or her ambition can achieve. Because why not? It's God that gave us that ability so that we express his divine being. We cannot fail to light the light that Lord has given us. And this is why he said in Matthew that people don't take lamb and put it under the table. You put it up so that it shines and so that that light can light the room and the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot hide our abilities simply because people are intimidated by it. It's God that gave it to us, and God will protect us. It's not us that protect ourselves. People die all the time. So when we get a chance to live, let's live with a purpose. And the purpose for us is to bring about a better society, a better world, a world that is more just, that is more freer, and that is prosperous. Why should our people be poor? We have a country that is blessed with resources. So these are the things they need to do. And we cannot allow this division that is used constantly against us to be used more. At some point, we have to call it a stop and rise up. Why can't we work together as young people? Why must this one go and look for some elder or some warlord and go and work with them? Why can we not begin forming our own structures and working together to reclaim our country? It's our country. And we are at the age when we can do whatever we need to do. And we have the networks, we have the resources. It's not like this is not something we can do. It's something we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do it. And the sooner we do it, the better. Because the more we leave these people, they use this ism. Like this is what you see now in Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to begin challenging that narrative. Because we are allowing that narrative to go unchallenged. So let's begin to challenge. And some work is being done, like what the Women Intellectual Forum is doing, for example, is an amazing work. And some of the people that are like state media, you yourself, people like me on Kwong and others, So let's and our network, there's a lot of work that is happening. So let's consolidate all of this. And one of the things I like to see is young people coming together. So I'm working now with a lot of young people from the diaspora and from the region and from the country to think about organizing a conference where we can really come together, discuss, and organize what is going to happen. Because it's our country. We have a say in it. And the world is saying that now it's not just about what Salva say anymore. So people are paying attention to us now. So this is perfect time to now begin coming together, countering that narrative, showing that our country is hopeful, because our country must be hopeful. Our people are people of hope. This is how they persevere. This is how 2 million people were killed, and our people are still holding their heads high. We are people that cannot be broken, and we cannot allow ourselves to be broken, no matter what they do, no matter what they do, and they know it. You know, they know it. They cannot break us. This is why they want to eliminate some of us, because they cannot. There's no way they can. So this government is very weak, very weak. It's a government that is of brutality. It's just national security and these thugs that are just doing all these horrible things. So let's not allow this ism, Barghazalism, Borism, Nuerism, or Equatorianism, or regionalism, or whatever, to divide us. Let's realize this is a time to build a new country and to put an end to the awful cycles of the past. Let 2022 be a year of renewal, individually in our own hearts and our own lives, and also in the life of our country, and how we are going to participate, how we are going to act. You know, let's allow a space for grace in our heart and for love, because without love, life is meaningless, because you cannot enjoy it. You cannot share it with the people that surrounds you. And when you love is when you truly live. So let us live one another. Let us love one another. Let us be good neighbors to one another. And let's work hard. Let's begin challenging. If someone says something bad against a tribe, you know, let's push that back. Let's not allow that comment to go unchallenged. Let's challenge it. Let's say that let's not generalize tribe. We judge people by their character. When we talk about Riek or Salva Kiir, it's not because they come from a certain region or tribes. It's because individually what they have done. We look at their records, you know, and the way they have behaved. So let's judge people based on the content of their character, not by how they look.
So phenomenal, Dr. Peter Berajak. Indeed, two individuals, two things need to be challenged. The evil of J1 that divide people and entertain when people of South Sudan are divided, and the evil that spread, you know, using the tribalism as a way for them to gain whatever political agenda that they wanted to achieve. We will keep fighting for the positive, as you said. That's what we wanted to happen, because we need to fight for South Sudan. We don't want to fight for Barghazal or Equatorial or Upper Nile. We need to fight for whole country, as a country for all of us. Thank you so much. Now, I must ask you this question. It is clear that from your advocacy, you do believe the election is the only way forward to bring political, you know, settlement in the country. Now, Ustaz Abiar, are you planning to run for the next election, or do you have any political organization that is ready actually to contest? What is it? Some people actually might be interested to hear something like it.
The issue at this point is not really about me running. That they should not be too curious about it. The issue is about elections happening, and that is my main interest. And elections that are credible and that are free and that are fair. However, whatever role I will play in this will become clear as the time comes. But as I mentioned before, my interest is not power. I have no desire to achieve political power. My problem is I cannot allow certain people to go and challenge just because I'm part of it or I have relatives that are part of it. Each individual can make a choice. And if they choose to be quiet about this, their own choice. I have a choice to make. And I live by my own example. And I grew up mostly on my own. And at a very young age, I realized that I have to be responsible for myself and for my action. At the end of the day, I'm accountable to myself, not to anyone else, to myself and to God Almighty. So I had to make that decision. So me, having lived in this system, having seen it, by the way, there are people that raise that, why is someone like Biar, who came from the system, challenging the system? And what makes him think that he can reform the system when he has been a beneficiary of the system? And this question by itself seems as if it is logical, but it's a question that when you break it down, it doesn't really mean anything. Because first of all, how would you know something is bad and how it is bad if you don't know it and if you are not experiencing it? When I first came to this system is because I believe I could fix it. And I went where my capacity was in the Ministry of Finance, and I implemented policies. But over time, I saw that what you do at the technical level have no meaning. The only growth strategy that the South Sudan government has ever written was produced by me when I was in the Ministry of Finance. The development plan, when there was ever consultation, I was a World Bank economist at the time, co-chair of the economic development pillar when the South Sudan development plan was done. I did these things, and through them I saw exactly how the system is broken. I realized the problem was security sector. I went to the security. I was senior advisor to Oyai when Oyai was minister. And the idea was to build a system that was accountable, that was adaptable, and that adheres to the constitutional norm. National security with limits defined by law, and with a mandate that has understanding of citizens' security, not just state security, citizen security, so that citizens are secure, not just their lives, their livelihoods, their assets, their well-being, their health, their environment. And it was because of the clash of that ideas when I finally realized that there's no interest either for economic reform or reform in the security sector that I left. I left before the war broke out, and my analysis was correct. And at the time, what I determined was I was not growing in this system. I'm not learning anything. I'm not making any change. Even the powers I had, I mentioned one day how initially I had powers. I could free people like Dengai Yogdit when they were arrested. But afterwards, when I was removed, after the July, when everybody was removed, I no longer had any influence. I just somebody there. So what do? I have no influence. I'm not learning anything. So I wanted to understand what was really causing this. What influenced the structures that emerged from the bush, from the SPLM, to produce the exercise of power that I was witnessing with my own eyes. And this is why I went for a PhD, to reflect on this. And this is basically what is in my thesis, that basically you have political violence that has more or less been defined by regionalism and tribalism. And this is what the leaders use to pursue power and to challenge power. And because of this, there was no space for politics to emerge, because politics is a peaceful consultation and sharing of ideas and negotiations that eventually lead to some sort of decision making, either through consensus or through majoritarian form, with rights of minorities also being respected, not just a majoritarian system. So this was never encouraged in the bush. And I realized this need to happen. And this is what I began doing. It's basically what led to the formation of South Sudan Young Leaders Forum, is when I finally reflected, after 5 years of reflection and research and interviews with all the leaders in South Sudan and understanding truly what has emerged in the bush, that I realized and I came to a conclusion that this generation of leaders cannot possibly bring about that South Sudan that our people died for. And it would require beginning to politicize our people, beginning to build a culture of nonviolent, peaceful processes and contestations, so that there is debate, and the debate is elevated, and our people are organized and prepared to pursue their own future. So I did this because I was challenging. So the thing is, so when people say someone come from the system, that is supposed to be a bad thing. That is no. System actually allow you to understand what is wrong and how to navigate so that it can be fixed. So you can't have people that come from nowhere, that have no experience. And when you have people here in the US like Donald Trump that never work in the government, how did they perform? So you need experience and to understand so that you know what the problem is and fix it, and innovation. And it's good to then know how to bring the knowledge that is required in. And the same thing in the SPLM. When we built the Red Army, it was to build the SPLM so that we expand the SPLM, bring others into the SPLM.
Mm.
But the problem is we are seen as threats as younger people. So at the end of the day, for me, whether I would run or not is an issue that will be determined. But what I'm absolutely serious about is that this election must happen. And if they don't happen, we'll make the price very heavy. And this will happen to everyone. And with the way things are going, the population is not happy. And with the suppression that is happening, they will become even more unhappy. So the government has to begin doing the right thing, because the time of getting away with nothing has ended. So me running or not running is issue that will be resolved later. But what we need to focus on is the issue of organizing. I believe there are other leaders in South Sudan. There are so many leaders. Look, even in the older generation, there are a lot of people that can be presidents of South Sudan, but they have to begin doing the work. They cannot just be schemers that just lie in the background.
The quiet,
waiting like a lion on a time just to jump in. That kind of politics is what got us to where we are in now.
Mhm.
President Kiir for so long pretended that he has no ambition to be president.
Correct.
But he was just lying there like a lion, waiting for the right time to jump in and to basically kill the prey. This is what others are doing now. So there are some, even we know about them, who are now laying in the quiet, and they think Salva Kiir will die anytime and they will jump in and take it from there. Those one are there. So if people like that, we will not accept you. We want you to begin talking. Let us see your vision of the country. What is it that you want to do and to accomplish? It cannot even just be a criticism all the time also, or supporting of peace. I support peace. I support. What does that even mean, you support peace? Supporting peace is supporting doing the things that Lamarck just outlined, the reforms that need to happen, the laws that need to be changed, so that we move toward election. Because the point of this government is a transitional government. It's not a legitimate government. It has no mandate to do anything. So if we are busy doing nonsense that is not even mandated to be done, and we are forgetting the things that are written into the agreement, then we are not doing what it needs to be to happen. So if we support peace, we support this political program to be implemented. So let it be implemented. That is what we want. And if these leaders that are sitting there and they're just waiting, oh, now is not the right time to talk because I have to eat. Okay, you eat. When the time to talk tomorrow come and you think we are just going to allow you, that is not going to happen, right? That must be understood. So we have to hear people talking now. Let's hear where you stand now, because this thing is going to happen. We are going to change this government.
Yes.
People have to understand that. The issue is just an issue of when, but it's not an issue of whether we will, because we will. And we know that we will. We know this. It's not something that we don't know. So since we know this, people have to also understand that we are not just going to hand power to people that have not worked for it or abandon us, the way that the SPLM has now been hijacked. We are going to also look at the people that have been part of the struggle. So we invite people to join the struggle now, because the struggle now is getting intense. And soon, that intensity is going to determine what the future will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this country is ready for transformation, for change, and for it to begin realizing its full potential. And it has the resources, the human capacity, people that are spread all over the world with all kinds of knowledge and resources, finances. Just imagine what the diaspora raised during these floods. The diaspora, they raised millions of dollars. They raised millions of dollars. Millions of dollars were raised to basically take the people out. My whole area of Bor now is flooded. But it's not like what happened in 61. 61, so many people died. Yeah? But this time, communities raised money. Here in the US, in Australia, in Canada, in the UK, everywhere where in Europe, everywhere that South Sudanese were. They send this money to their families, to their communities, and they save people's lives. Government did not do single thing. The people did it. And the same thing in Unity State, they're doing their best, and we should stand in solidarity with one another. But what I know is, in the end, when we use these resources politically, because our intention was to transform the SPLM, for SPLM to move forward, to adopt a different ideology. It's no longer a liberation ideology. We have development. We have to build. We have to build the fundamentals. Who are we as people of South Sudan? What is our What do we mean in our region, in our continent? What do we mean to the Black race? We are a country that is very old, that has heritage. When we look into that past, what do we distill from it to propel us forward? And we saw already what John Garang did, and that vision was there in John Garang. So how do we propel it forward? And how do we let it lighten the entire region and our entire world? Because 40% of the humankind is going to live in Africa. We are one of the largest countries in Africa. If we organize ourselves, we can be like Rwanda within a very short time. And now with the climate funds that has been set up by the UN, where there is 100 billion every year available, you just make your projects and apply. We know that Salva Kiir and Riek Machar will never get funding because their systems are seen as corrupt. Even with all the oil in South Sudan, you cannot get that amount of money. But if we have legitimate people in power today with the right kind of network, these people, they can get the resources that is required and transform our country within a very short time.
Thank you, Dr. Biar. Now,
my brother, my laptop is running out of power, and
I'll be quick. My last question. So
okay.
I must ask you this question, Dr. Biar. How do you look at the future of democracy in South Sudan in the next decade? Will South Sudan be democratized and become a democratic country after current leaders would have left a political to a new faces, or would it be still uncertain as it's the case?
Yes, no, it will be democratic. The reason it will be democratic is this. South Sudan is very young, and South Sudan is highly educated. Yes, some of the population on the ground is not educated, but we have a large diaspora that is spread all over the world and in the region. And they are very highly educated, they're very influential, and they're very democratic because they've seen democracy, and they know their culture and their society, so they connect to it. And they realize that democracy is rooted within their culture. And then these younger people don't have memories of all these Kubur that was destroyed in whatever, 1988, or this town that was captured by XYZ, who is now looting resources and not being held accountable because he captured some town in 87. They don't know that. So they care about the future, and they know the new world. They have technology, they're involved. Like one of the South Sudanese won some technology prize recently. I read about him on the BBC. They're innovating. These are people involved in artificial learning. They're connecting to the world and to the new ideas. So once we organize ourselves, we will build a democratic movement that will basically transform our country, get rid of these leaders and this generation entirely from power. We have a new generation in power, and with education and with networks from all around the world, we connect our country to the rest of the world. We make it a frontier in scientific research, in research of solar and technologies. We bring in solar to our country. We build renewable energy. We apply to the climate fund where we'll get billions of dollars. We build infrastructure, end this nonsense of flood, make the water available to all the regions of South Sudan, irrigate our land, feed Africa and the Middle East. And basically begin now dealing with the rest of the world. What is the role of Black people and how this world works? Because we have a say in it. So our vision is very broad. So this younger generation is going to transform South Sudan. They will put Africa on a map at a time when there is a shift in global balance and the world, the way the world is structured. And the order that we are living in was made at the time when we were not at the table. Right? This is when the world was shaped. Africa was colonized by Europe. Now we are free, and we have 54 countries. So these countries have a role to play. And South Sudan, being where it is, located strategically, if it is run well, with capacity and with understanding and with vision, it can play a leading role in placing Africa in its right place in the affairs of the world.
Dr. Bear, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being part of this. The conversation is started. Thank you. I know your laptop is low on batteries, and thank you so much one more time. Please, Merry Christmas to all entire family, especially to Mom. I enjoyed talking to her when I visited Washington, D.C.
Yeah, she went to Juba. She's doing her Christmas in Juba now. So Merry Christmas to her in Juba.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Merry Christmas to you, my brother.
With that, with the view of the concerned citizen of South Sudan, I really, really appreciate you coming in and watching this very, very important and credible discussion with Dr. Peter Berajak. Here you have it. There is not time to wait. We need to encounter these messages. We need to come together in order to confront the evils that divide people of South Sudan and hurling people of South Sudan backward. That's what needs to happen. Thank you so much for watching. Have a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much.
Wajah berkormayan wan wow alau di dengal kulinon jangang yu dai man padwit panyo dan jizir nyan paliyaran ledeku wajah berkormayan wan wow alau di dengal kau panakan bola jalaru atau korang walu di waldurjo padwit benar-benar yaru oh ami bola jalaru wadidaya kento ya kau panakan bola jalaru atau korang walu di waldurjo padwit benar-benar yaru oh ami bola jalaru wadidaya kento kumati garang maunde weng mati albino maundol dan cemir kenyan paliyaran ledeku wajah berkormayan wan wow alau di dengal mati yo garang maunde weng mati albino maundol dan cemir kenyan paliyaran ledeku wajah berkormayan wan wow alau di dengal kau panakan bola jalaru atau korang walu di waldorjo batila benar-benar wajar oh api bola jalaru wadidaya kento kai akwal pitara imbi man yetel akir nyan pace nyan wapol malung jipol jipol man yetel jipol nyan wa agul da jipo ajong man yetel nyan waka nyan ngong jipol akwal pitara imbi man yetel akir nyan pace nyan wapol malung jipol jipol man yetel jipol nyan wa agul da jipo ajong man yetel nyan waka nyan ngong jipol nyar jol wala mati anjilo ananane gumati malwal tong mayun weng mati yang mayun rawo anjir jen palinjaran litiku wajah berkor mayun wen wow alau di dengal lale wet mati anjilo ananane gumati malwal tong mayun weng mati yang mayun rawo anjir jen palinjaran litiku wajah berkor mayun wen wow alau di dengal kau panakan bola jalaru atau korang walu di waldorjo batila benar-benar wajar oh ami bola jalaru wadidaya kento kau panakan bola jalaru atau korang walu di waldorjo batila benar-benar wajar oh ami bola jalaru wadidaya kento na bentuk cinten kal paku dia kaci urai kaya na konggaj moji bana di moji ya lagi ni jar paku dia undi dengal na laben kaya nan kongwa moy kumyai wa karang ngong menyang diri man yaral ke wa ngarapen man yaral gelan jam jam magang dinado kalau jong adang magang di da jong magang di jok tungweri nyilwal pel jong marial bait cayele na bantu kin tanggal baku dia kaci orai kaya na konggaj moji bana di moji ya aleji ni jar baku dia undi dengal na laben kaya nen kongwa moy ya wa garang ngong menyang di man yaral ke wa ngarapen war man yaral yen lan jam jam magang dinatu kalau jong adang magang di da jong magang di a chau ting wari ni loal kwel jong marial bay jay galay kudam je alwel alwel ngar de u kenyan pal yarali undi dengwal chab tong ka jam je yang yang ngar de u kenyan pal yarali undi dengwal dan tong ong yarali ông mấy anh buồn chép nhận gọi phân về undi tenga kudam je alwel ngar de u kenyan pal yarali undi tenga chab tong ka jam je yang ngar de u kenyan pal yarali undi tenga dan tong ông yarali ông mấy anh buồn chép nhận gọi phân về undi tenga Kuyan lang tam tinyan pinyara li kwenyan kan yiweka Chol yara li chol o jam tinyan pinyara li kwenyan kan yinyika Chol yara li chol o a chol ngar chol yeting bany mandi Ting derang matu manubare lana gwergen Kacau yang pipinya cemukan dan berpoen dan mama lengayan makir tiara jalo pun mirjin nikel pun diar pelinjarali ipun mama Maria manyali Kacau yang pipinya cemukan dan berpoen dan mama aku nyenake jama yan berpoadil dan mama aku nyenake jama Yara li jungwa garang gargok yen lan mama pungwal kwan beting yara li kacau pipinya jemogan yeting yara li jungwa garang gargok yen lan mama pungwal kwan beting yara li kacau pipinya jemogan ron kuleng na yo muleng jalang gedin tini wi bandel jam jekin yen torwe Chala yang pangke doe yang pelinjarali ran pulori na yong dulori jalang kedinti ni wi balwen jam jekini na torwe chala yang pangke doe yang pelinjarali yang aburedi tengok tul ya tinggal pajon cirajo ke tengok lana kuen mayen pajo kacau pipinya cemogan kajiban kemalen makolit Aud makol diktoro ud makol ke tinggolangi ting pabien acai wirane kacau pipinya cemogan kai ben kemalen makolit Aud makol diktoro ud makol ke tinggolangi Ting pabien acai wirane kacau pipinya cemogan ran kuleng na yo muleng jalang gedin tini wi balbel jam jekini na torwe Chala yang konje doe yang pelinjarali ran pulori na yo mulori jalang gedin tini wi balbel jam jekini na torwe Chala yang konje doe yang pelinjarali yang aburedi Tengok sul ya tinggal pajon cirajo ke tengok lana kuen mayen pajo kacau pipinya cemogan kajiban kemalen makolit aun makolit doro makol ke tengbolang ting pabien acai wirane kacau pipinya cemogan kajiban kemalen makolit aun makolit doro makol ke tengbolang Ting pabien acai wirane kacau pipinya cemogan
Bawi on the beat.
Majung pagwar kanaray kamgapa Kuya bigir, kunyala bigir malwal Atem bolbi, manayuen gulate Atem mayuen bar kuteng Kiri chola wer kenyika DJ Justin, apaka gulate Gurula tutu, deng gurula tutu kaya Atem